Rounding out our quad video spree this week, we've got a Pokemon that's been banned for a long time. That's right, Porygon. Not from competitive, but from the anime itself. Yeah, of course you knew we were gonna mention the seizures it gave kids in Japan, thanks to the Electric Soldier Porygon episode. But let's be clear, it was actually Pikachu's fault because he was the one that destroyed those missiles. Unfortunately, poor Porygon got a bad rep just because it was its debut episode. But over in the game, Porygon most definitely wasn't banned. And you'll see why that was in Gen 1 for just a sec. And you'll notice I said quad video. This thing's evolutionary line is so convoluted that we're gonna need 2 videos to talk about it. So was Porygon worth all those coins at the Celadon Game Corner? Yeah, let's find out. Man, look at those stats, and this is a standalone Pokemon too. I guess Tauros, Chansey, and Scyther didn't have enough base stats to go around, leaving our virtual duck here with its highest stat being 75 in special. Yeesh. Alright, let's talk about the good things it had going. Porygon's move pool is pretty damn good, with anything you could want bar Body Slam, and oh yeah, a boosting physical move. Its best boosting move is Sharpen. Not even Swords Dance, just Sharpen. Oh well. With its physical set, Porygon only had one attacking move, Hyper Beam, and it would boost with Sharpen, often multiple times, raise its speed or lower the opponents with either Agility or Thunder Wave, and try to hold with Recover, which trust me, it definitely needed Recover. After 2 Sharpens, it could one-hit KO Alakazam, and after 3, if anyone actually lets you do 3 Sharpens, it could one-hit KO Starmie. God, I wish this thing had Sword Dance. The special set had amazing coverage and utility, with Blizzbolt, T-Wave, and Recover. But with no boosting move, this thing just couldn't kill anything. And it got knocked out pretty fast itself. There was also a mixed set that was just a motley combination with Psychic to cover Gengar, but it honestly just didn't have the attacking power to do much. Gengar was immune to its physical attacks, and Starmie and Exeggutor could sponge anything without a Sharpen. That also goes for a lot of other Pokemon in the game. And we've been talking about this thing as if it's gonna get up a Sharpen, which, honestly, would mostly be a glitch if it did happen. Even in Underused, it got bought by the Fossils, Tangela, and Hitmonlee, and Porygon made its debut at the very bottom of the tiers, in the depths of Underused. It doesn't even have a Nintendo Cup analysis, so maybe spend your coins on a nice Dratini instead. Luckily for Porygon, it got a much needed upgrade in Generation 2. Literally. Game Freak was like, man, what if we took Porygon and smoothed it out? Boom! New Pokemon! Introducing Porygon 2, which, yeah, I get the idea. It's a digital man-made Pokemon, but come on, Porygon 2? It sounds like a bad movie sequel. Well, good for Porygon 2, this sequel meant business. Porygon 2 patched up Porygon's awful stats with a 20-point boost to every single one, except for Special Attack, which was granted a 30-point boost. While Porygon 2's quote-unquote best set was a Curse Sweeper set, similar to many other Gen 2 Pokemon, it in particular has a nice niche. Unlike the other Curse users, it actually just straight up has Recover instead of Rest Talk, which provided a more reliable recovery. That also freed up a spot for Ice Beam, allowing Porygon 2 good coverage against ground and grass types. Or alternatively, Thunderbolt if you really wanted to hit the water types and Skarmory. There were 2 downsides to this set, however. One was that it was vulnerable to status, and the other was that it was quite outclassed by Snorlax as a cursor. But like, it's Snorlax, so what Pokemon wasn't? That said, Porygon 2 could now take advantage of its huge move pool and play the support role as well. With good old Thunder Wave at its disposal combined with Ice Beam and Recover, Porygon 2 could go on paralyzing a multitude of Pokemon and hit any Thunder Wave resistant ground Pokemon with Ice Beam. It also had access to Reflect for even more utility. Sort of like a firewall? Just call it McAfee, I guess. And one little tidbit that could be very useful, Porygon 2's double-edged 3-hit KO'd Raikou, who's one of the top 3 sets in GSC overuse. Porygon's Curse set had a good amount of counters, namely tankier Pokemon that didn't mind getting hit by either Return or Ice Beam, including Fortress, Umbreon, T-Tar, and Miltank. And Ghost types that didn't even get hit by Return, like Mischievous and Gengar, just left Porygon 2 taunting for nothing. But with that said, it was still solidly in overuse because it was just a strong all-around Pokemon. It was A tier Nintendo Cup as well, although these days it looks like its software might be a bit outdated, because by usage stats it wouldn't be overused, but in theory its code holds up. Porygon 2 gained the fun new ability in Trace in Gen 3, which let it copy the opponent's ability. With a little Control C, Porygon 2 could shape up really well against a ton of Pokemon, especially those with immunity abilities like Water Absorb, Bolt Absorb, and Levitate. Against Vaporeon, Jolteon, Lantern, Flygon, and Claydol, it ended up biting off their ability and using it against them, a strategy especially strong against Flygon, who would get iced out. And thanks to Ice Beam, it could even trap Dugtrio with its own Arena Trap and kill it. With Bolt Beam, Recover, and a status move, Porygon 2 did everything pretty well, with coverage, status, and longevity. It also had its sharpened set, which is surviving to this point pretty much just because Porygon 2 honestly could last pretty long with recover. Finally, its last set took use of the move Recycle, which can bring back a one-time use item. This set specifically held Starkberry, which is a pinch berry that raises a random stat by 2 stages. With recover and Recycle, Porygon 2 had a ramshackle moody going on, but let's be clear, this was pretty much a gimmick. Porygon 2 was a jack of all trades, but it still had its fair share of counters. Blissey and Snorlax as always do well against special sets, and Porygon 2 was no exception. The physical sets without Ice Beam struggled against Steelix, Rhydon, and Golem, and Metagross just wrecked it entirely because of its typing. But Porygon 2 was still overused, with a great spread in stats and moves and some nifty tricks with Trace. It was an especially good partner to Dragon Dance Tyranitar and Choice Band Heracross because it trapped the trio so well. Gen 4 gave Porygon 2 another upgrade, except this time it seems like it's just been hacked, which I feel like you can kind of see that coming if your software is called Dubious Disk, but hey Porygon, you do you. Now, I usually cover whatever evolution is better, but I only do that if both Pokemon in the same evolutionary line play pretty much the same. When it comes to Porygon Z and Porygon 2, there really isn't a quote-unquote better one of the two over the years, and of course, their play styles are completely different. That's going to be more true in Generation 5 because of a certain purple stone, but it's still the case in Gen 4 because of how the stat changes when Porygon 2 evolves into Porygon Z, which is a plus 30 points to special attack and speed, but a minus 20 in both defenses. So if you want to learn about Porygon Z, head over to this video now, which will cover all of its history too. Man, you guys love making me work, huh? Oh, well, more for me to talk about, I guess. But if you want to continue watching Porygon 2 or you just want to watch Porygon Z later, just continue with this video. Anyways, for Porygon 2, Gen 4 saw it slide into irrelevancy. It had another ability now, Download, which gives it a boost on switch-in depending on your opponent's stats. But its stats were starting to fall behind. Its speed especially, which we haven't talked about up until this point, was now looking downright bad. I guess base 90/95 defenses and 105 special attack wasn't that impressive by the time Gen 4 rolled around. It was still tanking hits, and in Gen 4 it actually invested more into that area because it wasn't quite cutting it as a special attacker. It could run Trick Room to be more offensive than before, potentially packing Tri-Attack or HP Fighting for more coverage, but Gen 4 saw Porygon 2 become a lame duck. When Salamence was legal, it was actually a great answer to the Dragon type because it could tank it out and hit it with a 4 times effective Ice Beam. But then Salamence got banned, so it became just another wall, which Swampert, Rotom, Blissey, and Skarmory all did better. And so did Chansey, Hitmontop, Arcanine, and Milotic in underuse. So Porygon 2 dropped all the way to never used, a huge fall from its overused status the gen before. So I guess maybe it was finally becoming obsolete. Gen 5 gave it a much needed patch, again, except this time indirectly, thanks to Eviolite, or Eviolite, whatever. Porygon 2's ability to top itself off with recover consistently meant that losing leftovers wasn't actually that big of a hit to take. And with Eviolite increasing both defense and special defense by 50%, Porygon 2 wasn't out of it yet. Sort of like Microsoft Word, sticking around forever even though there really should be a better version by now. With Trace, it could once again trap Dugtrio or copy Multiscale from Dragonite, or take Jolteon and Heatran's Voltazorb to wall them out. And unlike Gen 3, Trace did work on Intimidate immediately when it copied, so Intimidators like Gyarados and Landorus T got a taste of their own medicine. The tried and true Bolt Beam, Recover, and a Flex move was still its bread and butter, with this variant sometimes packing Hidden Power Fire for Steel types, which otherwise destroyed it. As a specially defensive wall, it could tank out Latios' Draco Meteor, and since Eviolite increases both stats, it could even take Psyshock. While its Trick Room set in the last gen was more wishful thinking, Porygon 2's increased bulk this generation made it quite the viable Trick Room setter, although without Life Orb it lost a good amount of power. Still, with Stab on Tri-Attack, it could net a good amount of kills. This thing was hard to kill and packed a pretty annoying punch. Unfortunately, it was other punches that gave it a hard time though. The plethora of fighting types in Generation 5 exploited Porygon 2's only weakness really hard, with Terrakion, Keldeo, and especially Conkeldurr all bursting through its defenses quite easily. It was also real vulnerable to Trick, obviously, since Eviolite was the key to its success, and no leftovers meant passive damage was a big problem for it as well. Although it ended up in underuse, it had a real nice niche in overuse, where it was quite an annoyance if you ran into it ill-prepared. In Gen 5 VGC, Porygon 2 peddled its wares as a Trick Room supporter with Magic Coat. Unfortunately, like most Trick Room setters, it hated Taunt, which almost completely disabled it. In addition, those fighting types that populated so much of Gen 5 overuse were no less popular in VGC. Even Eviolite Dusclops had a more useful typing, able to evade fighting types and the ever-present Fake Out. Not to mention, VGC does have an item clause, so people who wanted to use other Evioliters, and trust me, people wanted to use other Evioliters, were likely to sacrifice Porygon 2 for something else. It seemed fine, it was just also not the best. Porygon 2 stagnated going into Gen 6 singles, where it ran the exact same set as in Gen 5. With competition from Chansey and Clefable as normal walls, it was hard pressed to stand out, especially since Clefable's ability to spam Moonblast took away one of Porygon 2's better features, its respectable special attacking stat. Knockoff buffs in Gen 6 was also atrocious for Porygon 2, for obvious reasons. It still set itself apart with its attacking prowess, able to eliminate Lando, Gliscor, and Thundurus with its trusty Bolt Beam coverage, but it wasn't quite enough to make it the top choice for normal walls. It had a long list of checks and counters, knockoff fighting types, mega fighting types like Mega Lopunny, and steel setup sweepers like Excadrill, Scizor, and Bisharp, which would literally dance in front of Porygon 2. It ended up in underuse, and it sort of had a niche in overuse, but not really. Now, I couldn't find that many sets for Porygon 2 in Gen 6 VGC, but what I did find was interesting. The one set that was in a notable tournament I found didn't even use Trick Room, but it did win the Fort Wayne Premier Challenge in 2015, thanks to Sam Schweitzer. If you're watching this, I'm super sorry if I can't pronounce your name. This tournament was a regional that had 94 people. This Porygon 2 set used Analytic instead of Trace, an ability which gives a Pokemon a 30% attacking boost if the Pokemon it targets moves last. Since Porygon 2 is so slow, it almost always got Analytic, and it could cover a good range of threats with Ice Beam and Hidden Power Ground, while Toxic and Recover let it win against other walls. This set really played into the tanky archetype of Porygon 2, but unfortunately there's no footage of it, so instead we have the usual Cybertron video of people using it. Yeah. As far as usage goes, it had only a 2% usage rate in Worlds 2015. But hey, it had some regional use and was on a top 8 team in Japanese nationals. So, it seems intriguing either way. Now before I end this video, I want to say one thing. I know all of you want us to do Gen 7, but since Ultra Sun and Moon are coming out pretty soon, I'm gonna wait until at least a few months after that meta develops so I don't release anything immediately outdated. But since VGC 2017 is over, I'll briefly tell you about how Porygon 2 was one of the most popular Pokemon in the format as a bulky Trick Room setter, in a meta where Cresselia wasn't allowed. But hey, its usage stats are at least top 10, so that's pretty damn good. So how good was Porygon actually? Well, Porygon sucked, but Porygon 2 was pretty good. Trace, a good stat spread, and a wide attacking move pool all make it a pretty unique Pokemon, able to hold on for a long time and put out consistent damage. It may have fallen to the wayside in Gen 4, but Eviolite was just one more piece of code that made it commit to updating its software. Alright, I swear I'm done with the computer jokes for now, except in the Porygon Z video, so go check that out if you want to know about Porygon's mal-infested sibling. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video and want to see more, be sure to subscribe to False Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And of course, as I always say every single video, comment on what Pokemon video you want to see next. Alright, see you next time everyone.